In the movie's introduction, it is narrated that human evolution is at a turning point. Most science fiction hypotheses indicate that the future of humans will be more advanced, with more intelligent people. But because humans are already at the top of the food chain, their evolution makes it worse. People grow more mindless with time. In such situations, the US Army librarian, Corporal Joe Bowers, is approached by his seniors, proposing he participate in a crucial experiment. Joe, who had arranged to stay a librarian till retirement, is annoyed but has to follow the orders. After that, we are taken to a secret meeting between some high-ranking military officers. General Collins demonstrates his ideas to the other officers. He says that scientists have invented a human hibernation pod that can preserve human beings for an indefinite time. It is so humans can maintain their finest men at their prime and revitalize them in times of... They selected Joe as the first test experiment because he is the most average man in the military and has no close family. Similarly, they also required a woman for the experiment, but didn't have a perfect fit in the military. Therefore, Collins selects a prostitute named Rita. He shows the officers pictures of him and Rita's manager, Upgrade, partying together, making everyone in the room uncomfortable. He ended the presentation by saying they would put the subject into the pods tomorrow, and the experiment would go on for a year. Since the experiment is positively classified, the officials in the room aren't allowed to share the information with anyone. The next day, Joe and Rita are together in a waiting room. Joe presents himself and asks Rita what sector she is from. Not wanting to reveal that she is a prostitute, Rita says that she is a painter. Then, both are put on IV and into 2 human hibernation pods. Rita freaks out and tries to get up, but Joe guarantees the scientists know what they are doing. He tells her they will only be inside for a year, so that it will be perfectly fine. Finally, the pods seal the 2 inside. However, things begin to go wrong when Officer Collins is arrested in an attempted prostitution ring. Upgrade is arrested alongside him and charged with being the ringmaster of a prostitution ring. Hence, no one is there to look after the hibernation pods. A scandal led to the military base's closure and the demolition of the pods building. Joe and Rita lie dormant in the pod as the years pass. Although things look wrong for the 2, they are even more destructive for humankind. Humans start to become more foolish at a frightening rate. The chart of average intelligence goes downhill with time. Some people have high hopes that genetic engineering and science will be able to repair this trend of evolution. Still, the most intelligent scientists in the world are focusing on stupid experiments like trying to change hair loss and extend erections. In the meantime, the population explodes, and intelligence continues to decrease until the year 2505. People have not been able to solve fundamental human problems like garbage disposal all these years. So, people have stacked the garbage for centuries and have yet to have a plan whatsoever. This makes the Great Garbage Avalanche of 2505. One day, a colossal garbage landslide pushes Joe's hibernation pod to end up in a random house. Joe gets out of the pod, dizzy and confused. The person in the house is named Frito Pendejo. Frito completely ignores a pile of garbage and a stranger in his house, continuing to watch weird shows on TV. He only gets up to ask Joe not to make noise. His couch also has a toilet, so he wouldn't have to get up repeatedly. He then kicks Joe out of the window. The outside world seems confusing to Joe, and he tells himself that so much has transformed in just a year. But little does he know, he has entered the year 2505. He sees a group of people by the side of the road who talk in slang and grunts. Joe can understand them, but when he speaks to his usual self, they call him insults and chase him away. A confused Joe also feels dizzy and goes to a nearby hospital. He goes to the reception and tells her he's from the army. The woman doesn't understand anything and presses one of the numerous buttons on her desk. A voice requests Joe to proceed to the diagnostic area on the right. Confused, he drinks water from a fountain, but it supplies an energy drink called Brawndo instead of water. When Joe asks a bystander where he can drink water, The man laughs at Joe for wanting to drink something they use in the toilets. It is revealed that everyone uses Brondo to bathe, drink, and do daily activities. In contrast, water is only used in toilets. Then he goes to the diagnostic area, where he has to put plugs into his mouth, ear, and anus. The health professional mismatched the plugs he had already put into specific regions. Joe, who is sick, undergoes the procedure and is referred to a doctor. While waiting, he sees the date 2505 written in a magazine, but dismisses it as a misprint. The doctor comes and responds to all of Joe's questions about his health with kick-ass. He also claims Joe retarded and requests him to pay a fee of $5 billion. Simply then, Joe notices 2505 written on the bill. He finally realizes he has been inside the pod for 500 years. Joe almost doesn't believe it and goes to the window only to be surprised to see the city's current condition. Buildings are collapsing onto each other and ropes hold together some. In addition, the city is filled with garbage. Meanwhile, the doctor freaks out because Joe has no citizen tattoo on his wrist. Joe panics and runs away from the hospital, while the doctor calls the police on him for not paying his hospital bills. A voice narrates that Joe has woken up to a world in crisis. The economy is in profound neglect, a great dust bowl has ravaged all food supplies, and the #1 movie in the country is called Ass. He goes to watch the film that won the Oscars only to stare at someone's behind for 90 straight minutes. At night, he is arrested for being unscannable and taken to court. There, he is given a lawyer who happens to be Frito Pendejo, the guy that Joe met first in 2505. Frito makes fun of him as everyone in the court laughs. Joe explains his case sensibly and why he's unscannable, but the lawyers and judge laugh at him. At last, the judge declared him guilty and punished him in jail. Meanwhile, Rita comes out of the pod and tries reaching her manager and boyfriend, Upgrade. She is unsuccessful, as the phone requests her for $2,000 to complete the communication. Just then, she's approached by a man she tricks and gets his money from. At the same time, Joe is taken to an automated tattoo area where citizens receive an identification tattoo that makes them scannable. The machine requests his name, but Joe explains that he still has to determine what is happening. Because of this, the machine reads his name as not sure and tattoos it on his wrist. The people around him also start calling him not sure. He is then taken to an amplitude and IQ test, where he is asked questions about crucial addition. Joe responds to all of them correctly and is surprised to see the people around him unable to identify simple shapes. After that, he is taken to the prison. He finally starts to realize that everyone in the current world is stupid. So he tells the guard he's supposed to get out of jail today. The unsuspecting guard lets him walk away, but the alarms ring as an inmate has escaped and the police chase him down the streets. Joe somehow evades them and goes back to Frito's place. He assumes someone has created a time machine within the past 500 years and asks Frito for help finding one. Frito is initially reluctant, but Joe tricks him by promising to give him $8 billion for assistance. Eventually, Frito reveals that he understands where the time machine is. Just then, the police knock on the door, looking for Joe. The two escape through the window and drive to the museum. On their way, they meet Rita, who is still scamming the same man. Rita gets in the car and expresses her worry that Upgrade will come looking for the money she owes him, unaware that he's already dead. As they drive, something outside the car scans Joe's wrist, and the police are notified of his location. The car's battery runs out, forcing them to abandon it. Right after, the police approach the vehicle and open fire. A crowd joins in, and a fight happens. Joe, Frito, and Rita run away, hoping to reach the time machine. Joe then takes the two to Costco, the center of all trades. He even claims to have studied law there. As they wait for the metro, Rita goes to the bathroom. Before she returns, Joe's wrist is accidentally scanned, alerting the entire place to the presence of a criminal. The metro arrives and Frito gets on it, but Joe waits for Rita, only to be caught by the police. However, He's taken to the White House instead of prison this time. There, a confused Joe meets President Camacho and his secretaries. Camacho makes fun of him, saying he thought Joe's head would be more significant because he is brilliant. The IQ test Joe took in the prison surprised everyone, as he had the highest IQ they had ever seen. Hence, the president makes Joe the new Interior Secretary because of his intelligence. To Joe's surprise, they also declare him the most intelligent man in the world. Everyone then goes to the House of Representatives, where the president announces that the issues of food scarcity and dust storms will be solved by their new Secretary of Interior, Mr. Not Sure. He also promises to pardon Joe's prison time if he solves the problem. After that, a cabinet meeting is held, where the secretaries ask Joe to say something intelligent. Joe says some random, complicated words, making them believe that he is indeed intelligent. Then Joe requests Frito to draw a map of the site of the time machine until he distracts the secretaries. Later, he takes them to a field where crops are supposed to be grown. He also asks them to get Rita because she might be able to help them with the crops. Now, everyone is at the field, where Frito secretly hands Joe the map. At the same time, Rita arrives there. Joe takes her aside, planning to run away using the map, but his plan only works when he sees Frito's map is just a line. Then Joe realizes that people have been watering the crops with the energy drink Brawndo. He holds a cabinet meeting to start using water instead of Brawndo. The secretaries think his idea could be better. So, instead of reasoning with them, he tells them that he can talk to the plants and they want water. Joe is unaware that the energy drink had caused the salt to develop over the topsoil, which killed plants and caused dust storms. Hence, he is solving their problems. For a few days, everything goes as planned. But the energy drink Brawndo's stocks soon drop to zero because of the decreased production. This leaves half the population unemployed. They riot outside the White House. The news reports that Joe is taken to court for making people unemployed and is proven guilty. He is sentenced to 1 night in rehabilitation. In the New World, rehabilitation is when a criminal is chased by a large truck in an arena as a crowd of audience cheers for the car. The rehabilitation mostly ends with the criminal's death. Joe is taken to the arena, while Rita sadly returns to the White House, ready to go to the time machine with Frito. The rehabilitation is broadcast on national television. Joe is chased by a massive killing truck as he drives around in a small car. Just then, Rita sees a rose plant growing outside. She realizes that Joe's idea to water the plants has worked and asks Frito to take her to the arena. She plans to broadcast the crops on television so Joe's punishment will be pardoned. Meanwhile, Joe is still trying to save his life from the death truck. Rita arrives there on time and bribes a cameraman to go with Frito and film the growing crops. She then goes to the monitoring room and takes over the control panel. Frito finally reaches the field and films the crops. The clip is broadcast on the large screen. Seeing this, President Camacho saves Joe from being killed and forgives his punishment, making the crowd cheers. Now, everyone is at a frat party in the White House. Rita says she doesn't want to return home because she likes the future better. Joe is surprised but doesn't force her to come with him. The two say their last goodbye, but the president calls him onto the stage before Joe leaves and declares him the new vice president. Everyone looks at Joe, hopefully making him agree to stay in 2505. Then one person calls the time machine a stupid ride. Frito brings a confused Joe to the machine, and it is finally revealed that the time machine is a children's ride. The scene cuts a few months later when Joe is elected as the President of the United States, and Rita becomes his wife and the First Lady. Under his supervision, a new era dawned, and people hoped that humans could be bright again. He even has 3 kids with Rita, who are said to be the most intelligent kids in the world. Thank you.